Finally, there is good news for the Commanders, probably for the first time this offseason.
Are you fucking with me?
Terry McLaurin has signed a 3-year extension, keeping him in Washington for the next 4 years. Terry McLaurin has averaged over 1,000 yards per season over the last 3 years, the most of any wideout drafted in 2019. This offseason, the wide receiver market completely flipped on its head, and it helped McLaurin ink a $71 million deal. And I promise you right now, you don't know how good Terry McLaurin is, but Washington does, and that's why they paid him. McLaurin got a 3-year, $71 million extension. That comes down to about an average of nearly $24 million per season. With it comes a $28 million signing bonus, the largest ever given to a wide receiver. Plus, 76.4% of that money in the deal is guaranteed. But who knows, a few years down the road, his contract may look like a bargain with how fast money changes in the NFL. He does have one more season on his rookie deal, so he'll be locked up in Washington for the next 4 years, meaning at 30 years old, McLaurin will be ready to go get another contract. And who knows what the wide receiver and salary cap will look like then. Already this offseason, we've seen receivers become significantly more valuable. There isn't one specific reason why, but I do suspect it somewhat came with the Bengals choosing a wideout, Jamar Chase, over helping the offensive line and then going on a Super Bowl run. This offseason has been wild. Davante Adams got that 5-year, roughly $141 million deal, over $28 million a season, and Tyreek Hill got a 4-year, $120 million extension, good for $30 million per season. And of course, inside the division, the Eagles gave A.J. Brown a 4-year, $100 million contract. That's $25 million a year. Like McLaurin, Brown was drafted in 2019, a draft that has been filled with wide receiver contract questions all offseason. Every metric you can find will tell you that McLaurin and Brown are the two best in the class. We already saw how A.J. Brown was able to change the Titans' passing game, and Terry McLaurin is, I would say, the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL, not named T. Higgins, but that's a video for a different day. Outside of McLaurin and Brown, DK Metcalf is looking for a new contract. Unsure really what the money would look like on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks just wait to see how he fares with a new quarterback to see how much Russell Wilson really did play a factor in his success. Obviously, whoever is behind center in 2022 will be a downgrade, whether that is Drew Lock or if it's Baker Mayfield. I always get a billion comments whenever I bring up the 2019 class without bringing up Deebo Samuel. So yes, I know he is also looking for a contract extension. I've said it a million times though, I really just don't like considering him a wide receiver. I see him more as just this freak athlete that can do anything you ask him. McLaurin, Brown, and Metcalf, they're all just pure wideouts. Back in 2019, Washington selected Terry McLaurin in the 3rd round, and a lot of the reasoning was to pair him up with his college quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. McLaurin wasn't exactly a star at Ohio State. He had less than 600 yards over the first 4 years of college. 4 years, 600 yards. That's it. But that wasn't the case in 2018. McLaurin had over 700 yards and 11 touchdowns as a redshirt senior. Still, ahead of the 2019 NFL Draft, he was regarded as a special teamer and a backup wide receiver, with maybe the potential to become a starter. NFL.com even compared him to Justin Hardy, who went undrafted, and oh yeah, he wasn't even good enough to play receiver in the pros and opted to switch to cornerback. So yeah, safe to say that a lot of teams missed on their evaluation of Terry McLaurin. And as a Washington fan, I'm so glad they did. From the moment McLaurin set foot at Washington training camp, it was obvious that he was something special. And I'll tell you what, everyone in that building knew that Washington found a gem in the 3rd. McLaurin, in his NFL debut, his first game ever, had 125 yards and a touchdown, and the rest is history. He showed flashes all rookie year, and despite missing 2 games, still had over 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. The next season, McLaurin became a team captain, helped Washington to an NFC East title, and had over 1,100 yards with 4 touchdowns. Then, in 2021, McLaurin had over 1,000 yards again to go with 5 touchdowns. He is a beast. Everyone that's watched him knows that, and it's come with 8 8 different starting quarterbacks in his career in only 3 years, and Carson Wentz will make that 9 this season. McLaurin played his first game in the pros, catching passes from Case Keenum before Colt McCoy was named the starter, and eventually Dwayne Haskins. In 2020, Haskins started the year, but then he ended up getting benched for Kyle Allen, and then once Allen got hurt, Alex Smith took over, despite him nearly dying 2 seasons before. Ryan Fitzpatrick started in 2021, but got hurt in week 1, and Taylor Heineke played the majority of the season, but at one point he got COVID, and Garrett Gilbert had to start. 8 different quarterbacks in 3 years, and Carson Wentz is going to be 9 after Washington traded away a second and 2/3 for him this offseason. Just like Carson Wentz is a huge upgrade for Terry McLaurin, Wentz is easily going to be playing with the best wide receiver cast he has ever had in his career. I think Wentz is easily the best quarterback McLaurin has ever played with, and just based on pure talent alone. I've watched enough Carson Wentz since he came into the league in 2016 to know exactly what he is. He's a talented quarterback who I believe tries to play hero ball way too often and makes bad decisions sometimes, or all the time. Hopefully having better wideouts around him and just players in general will help him do his job and not feel like he needs to be a hero. Curtis Samuel is going to be the number 2 receiver. He'll be back after he dealt with a groin injury all 2021. Wentz has already had some praise for Samuel, calling him explosive and that whenever he does get the ball in his hands, he quickly makes guys miss or gets downfield. Samuel had over 1,000 yards with the Panthers in 2020, and if he can be healthy again, he should have a good year across from McLaurin like he did when defenses were paying more attention to DJ Moore in Carolina. Plus, at the 2022 NFL Draft, Washington continued to go after wideouts, taking Jahan Dotson. Dotson had almost 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns at Penn State last season. He is a jump ball guy, the exact kind of receiver that Carson Wentz is going to love. Dotson fits Wentz's play style really well and just really what he wants to do, and I think that even though Dotson is the likely 3 behind McLaurin and Samuel, he should make an impact as a rookie. For the first time in a while, I have a little bit of optimism for Washington, and maybe that's just because Terry McLaurin getting down for the next 4 seasons is the rare good news that Commanders fans haven't had much of in a long time. I think that optimism is rooted in just simply Terry McLaurin. He's the leader in the locker room. There's a reason he's a team captain, and a little after he signed his extension, he sent out a tweet that tells you everything you need to know about the person Terry McLaurin is. Yeah, I know the message is long as hell, but I read it all, and here's what's important. McLaurin talked about how much of a blessing it's been playing in the NFL, but that team accomplishments mean more than the individual ones. And while getting a new contract is exciting, it motivates him to work even harder. He thanked God, his family, his girlfriend, essentially the entire Washington organization and his teammates from the past and present, and finally, he thanked the fans and said that he knows that Washington can return to the upper echelon of football and establish a winning culture, one day at a time, together, through hard work and dedication.
That was beautiful. We still gotta run him out of town.
That's the kind of person Terry McLaurin is. You already know what kind of player he is. You've seen that every Sunday. But Washington got more than just one hell of a player. They got one hell of a person. And I wouldn't want to see anyone else leading the Commanders out on the field in the coming future. Also, for those worried about my awful looking hair that had apparently resembled like someone had just used it to scrub the floor, I cut it. You're welcome.